Welcome to this special edition of Inside Fall River. My name is Steve Camara, and as your host today, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest and welcome to Fall River. Our guest from nearby New Bedford, Molly Lim, is Human Services Director for the New Bedford Department of Community Services and lead mediator for the local consumer program there, and we'll be learning about more what that means. And Marcelina Pina Christian, Marcy, as we'll call her today. Marcy, welcome, who is Human Services Coordinator, also New Bedford Department of Community Services, and lead mediator for the Face-to-Face mediation program. Both have affiliation with the Attorney General's office, so we thank the Attorney General for providing you to us today. And both are talking about a very important thing that face all of us, because all of us are consumers, and many of us at times find ourselves in a situation where we might need mediation. And I know that in my own experience, I've had to deal with mediation in housing court. I'm not sure if that's the exclusive kind of mediation that you provide, but we'll learn more about that as we proceed. And I'm going to ask you, first of all, to, and I think that Molly, you may be taking this first part, is tell us about and tell our viewers about the local consumer program and how it serves particularly the people of Fall River.
All right. Well, the local consumer program is actually a program that's run and funded by the Attorney General's office. There are actually several local consumer programs across the state. We are one of several. We're based out of New Bedford City Hall, but we serve the entire southeastern Mass area, from Wareham all the way to the Rhode Island border. And our area goes as far north as Norton and North Attleboro. So we serve the residents of this entire region, as well as residents who live out of state who've maybe filed complaints against a business that's in this region. So what we do with the local consumer program is we do free consumer mediations. We get cases or complaints forwarded to us from the Attorney General's office, and we work with the consumer and the business to try to mediate a satisfactory conclusion to some kind of dispute.
And what are the kinds of businesses that you most often deal with in these kinds of issues?
Well, we get all kinds of complaints. You can imagine the Attorney General's office gets hundreds of actually complaints a day. And some of the trends that we're seeing, I mean, we usually have a lot of complaints against auto dealers, but we also occasionally get complaints about scams, you know, people who feel that they've fallen victim to a scam. We get a lot of home improvement contractor complaints, and you know, this time of the year too, or, you know, with tax season just ending, a lot of tax-related scams crop up, you know, as well as complaints against tax preparers.
Great. Well, rather than just staying focused on the local consumer program, let's jump to the face-to-face mediation program, Marcy, and tell us a little bit about that program and how it specifically might benefit people here in Fall River.
Great. Thanks for having us, Steve. It's a pleasure being here. It's a wonderful studio. The face-to-face mediation program is actually a dispute resolution program, and it's fairly new for us. We actually started it in September. It too is funded by the Attorney General's office, and we serve 25 towns in South Coast, the same that the local consumer program serves. And the difference between our program is mediation is exactly what the title suggests. It is bringing the parties together with a neutral third party, the mediator. And we also provide our services within the community and within the courts. We go to small claims courts, and also some of our mediators are trained for evictions, summary process, landlord-tenant type complaints. When we started the program, we're growing by leaps and bounds. When we started, we were in Fall River Court, and we still are there. We now have contracted with Wareham, the Court of Wareham, and also Attleboro, and looking to get into New Bedford as well. So our program is growing greatly, and mediation is a field that is also growing. So we're very excited about the program, and the communities at large have been very receptive to our services as well.
Now, unfortunately, I've had to, as a property owner, I own real estate, and I've had to go to housing court on occasion. But the mediators that I have there are, I believe, housing court mediators. Are they mediators that would be different than your mediators, and what would their duties be that would be different?
Yes.
For instance, in a housing court.
The housing court provide their own mediators. They are a part of their staff. The mediation that we do it in the courts. So it is different, but the
Meaning courts other than housing court?
other than housing courts.
Okay.
Yes. The district courts.
Okay. And in both cases, are there fees attached to the services? The consumers that might avail themselves of the services you offer, do they have to pay anything out of their pocket in order to get services from you?
No, it's a free program. Both the local consumer program and face-to-face, they're free. We actually get referrals from the AG's office, and we also have people who walk in off the street and ask for mediation, and there is no cost attached to it. It's part of this program. That's, it's a service supplied by the Attorney General's office.
Great. So not free in that taxpayers paying for it, but certainly a beneficial service to the consumer. Now, is it also a service available at no cost to a business? If a business wanted to, or a property owner wanted to pursue some action toward a consumer, does that opportunity exist for him or her as well?
Well, for the local consumer program, we don't take on complaints. We're actually restricted to mediating complaints filed by a consumer, an individual, against a for-profit business. So we have certain restrictions that it has to be an individual versus a business, not an individual against another individual, or we can't take complaints against charities or government entities, but I think face-to-face mediation is different.
It is. Face-to-face is different. It could be any type of scenario. It could be a business against a business, or business against an individual, individual against an individual. So there's
a wide range of
much
options.
more flexibility there.
That's great. That's great. Now, if someone wanted to file a complaint in the case of your services, if an individual did want to file a complaint, what is the procedure that would be required? And in both cases, what is the procedure?
Well, there's two ways that a person could go about it. If you are a consumer wanting to file a complaint against a business, you can go directly to the Attorney General's website, www.mass.gov/AGO, and that'll take you to the Attorney General's office webpage, and you can file electronically. And the Attorney General's office in Boston reviews the cases, and then we'll forward it to our office for possible mediation. Or you can also file directly with us. Not everybody feels comfortable doing things electronically online, so we can send hard copies of complaint forms to people. They can contact us at New Bedford City Hall. We have several phone lines actually dedicated to all our mediation programs. They can call us at 508-979-1693, or they can also email us at consumer@newbedford-ma.gov.
Okay, could you repeat that number again?
Okay.
I think we'll be, hopefully, we'll be showing that as well.
Yep, 508-979-1693, or via email at consumer@newbedford-ma.gov.
Excellent, good. And we may ask you to repeat that as we get closer to the end of our interview today.
Now, for Marcy's program, though, how that might be slightly different.
The difference would be, well, our contact information would be 508. You could call 508-979-1464. You could email us face-to-face at New Bedford, one word, -ma.gov. And the way the process would begin, an individual would call and we would assess what the situation is, and they would say that they needed mediation. We would ask them how they were referred to us, and then we would ask them to provide information on party 2. And we would reach out to the second party to find out if they would be interested in participating in mediation. Mediation only works if both parties agree to the process and to participate. If one party wants it and the other does not want to participate, well, then we can't move forward with a mediation.
So it has to be mutually agreed upon to make
Absolutely.
it move forward. Now,
Absolutely.
is it binding between the parties once they've agreed to participate, or can they opt out at some point?
Well, we tell them during the mediation, once they agree, they sign a form, which is an agreement to participate form, and we explain to them what the process would be like. And we tell them that they can withdraw from the process at any time. As far as in answer to your question, is it binding? Yes, it is. Once they reach an agreement, we have them sign an agreement form with what the settlement is. And then it is up to them. If it's done outside of court, then it's up to them to do their part, whatever they agreed to make sure that the agreement is enforced. If the agreement was prepared in the courts, then a court official will also sign the document along with the two parties, and it will become a document of the court, which the court will enforce.
Is there an automatic review by the court authority of the mediation, like coming back in 2 months or 3 months to?
There could be, depending on the situation and what the settlement was. For example, if two parties came together and there was an issue of party A owed another party $650. And on the day of the mediation, that's how it was resolved. One of the parties said, I'm prepared to write out a check right now for the amount. Well, then when we prepare the document, we would put was settled, and there would be no need for, it was settled on that day. If it was something where there were a payment plan, sometimes the agreement may be written up where party A will pay X amount of dollars per month to be settled by such and such a date. And the magistrate might say, do you feel that we need to come back to court, within so many months? And if the parties, it's basically whatever the parties agree to.
Mm-hmm. Now, if the agreement was made and there was an agreement that on the 15th of each month for the next 3 months, a payment would be made, and the payment is not being made. If there isn't a review already established in the initial process, is there a way for one of the individuals, the aggrieved
Yes.
individual, to bring it back to the court?
Yes, they could, and it does happen. It does happen in various situations.
Would that be that the individual has to then go to the court and prepare a document, a motion, if you will?
It probably would.
That kind of thing?
At that point, the magistrate or the judge would probably take a more severe type of, it would probably not go back to mediation, because the magistrate would probably, or sometimes the parties would say, Your Honor, we've gone through mediation and party B has not kept the agreement. I do not choose to go to mediation. So usually we haven't experienced that yet with the cases that we have been mediating, but I would think that that's how it would work, that if mediation failed in some way, or not the mediation, but the parties failed, one of the parties failed in keeping the agreement, then they would look to the court to be the enforcer.
To bring justice. Yeah. Molly, to get back to the local consumer program, are there any restrictions, any limitations that exist on what a consumer might want to approach you with.
Right. Well, as I mentioned before, we can only mediate complaints that are filed by an individual against a for-profit business. So complaints filed against a city official, for example, or against a not-for-profit, those are actually handled by different divisions of the Attorney General's office, the Nonprofit and Charities Division, for example. Anything that involves a criminal complaint, we will refer them to either to the police department or to the proper authorities, or the Criminal Investigation Division of the AG's office. We have far more restrictions than the face-to-face mediation program does. And our mediation is slightly different. We don't meet face-to-face. A lot of our mediations are done over the phone or by letter. A lot of times one of the parties, for example, the business, may be a multinational company with a headquarters in a different state. So our mediation is somewhat a little bit more informal, and it's done usually by telephone or correspondence.
Now, if you could, just give us a scenario, like one of your more common kinds of issues that you're faced with. If you could just take us step by step on a consumer calls your office, indicates that he or she has a problem. How would it go step by step?
Well, the consumer first has to file a written complaint, whether it's through the Attorney General's office or through us directly. Take, for example, a very common scenario is someone who's purchased a used car, and there is something wrong with the car, and for some reason the dealer is not being very helpful in agreeing to do any repairs for the car. The consumer can file the complaint, submit supporting documentation, we review it, we talk to the consumer, we talk to the merchant, and if we feel that there really is the basis of a complaint, because a lot of times consumers sometimes they don't know what they're supposed to do. A lot of times the merchant may not have done anything wrong, and we can try to explain that to the consumer. Or if it's a situation where the consumer hasn't been made aware of his or her rights, we can kind of explain that, and we take it from there.
A lot of complaints? Are you a very busy office? Or,
Yes, we do over 600 complaints a year for the local consumer program.
And that's for the region?
That's for the region. We get 50 to 60 complaints a month.
And what's your staffing, in addition to you?
Well, Marcy and I are both the lead mediators we work full-time at City Hall, but we have 5 other part-time mediators who work different shifts, and we all work different hours.
And you're all mediators?
Yes.
All 7 of you
Yes.
are mediators. Excellent. Well, if I assume that that's part of what you do is outreach to the community, such as you're doing right now, right here. And if someone that's listening to you is sort of interested and might want to have a workshop or a presentation before a particular community group, is that something that they can avail themselves of?
Yes, that's actually another part of what we do besides the free mediation services. We also do educational outreach, because a lot of the times, by the time we get a complaint, sometimes it's too late. The consumer's already been scammed, or they have missed very important deadlines. In the case of, say, an auto purchase, a lot of people don't realize that 7-day time frame to get your car inspected, that is put there for a reason. There's protections that are in place for consumers, and a lot of times, by the time they file the complaint, sometimes it is too late for us to try to do something about it. So we try to be proactive. We do presentations at colleges. We do presentations at parenting programs. We do a lot of presentations in the immigrant community. We have multilingual mediators on staff. We do mediations in Spanish and Portuguese, as well as English, and we do presentations at ESL classes and churches and other parent support networks to try to get the word out, to try to educate people on their consumer rights so that we don't have to work with them later on down the road on a complaint that they've filed. Prevention's key in a lot of these cases. So.
Excellent.
And with our program, when we started the program, we were primarily getting referrals. Most of the mediations were done in the courts, but through the presentations that we've been doing throughout the community, now we're doing mediations within the community, and we're getting referrals from the police station, from the housing authority, from South Coast Legal Services. All of them are seeing that they can utilize our program offerings. So it's been really great getting out into the community and teaching people how to handle their disputes through mediation.
That sounds wonderful. I know that our Attorney General's office has been very reputable in leading the way nationally on a whole range of consumer issues. So it's not surprising to me that that we have the good services that you're offering through the Attorney General's office. I just want to be sure that we're clear about someone wanting mediation services. So maybe Marcy can take that. If someone did think that they were eligible or they would benefit from a mediation service, what is the procedure, similar to my question to Molly, to come to you to have something in the courts resolved through mediation? What would be the process?
Just call or email. They could come to our office at New Bedford City Hall. I'm in room 113 at the New Bedford City Hall, or call 508-979-1464 so that we could do the intake and find out if it is a type of situation where the individuals would benefit through mediation.
And do you hold any office hours in other communities at this point, or are you exclusively out of New Bedford?
With mediation, as I mentioned earlier, we're in the different courts. So our mediators go to court from Monday to Thursday. They are at the different courts. And when we're doing community mediations, we will come to the parties.
Okay.
So if the two individuals are residents of Fall River, we would say to them, we would get their input as to, where would you be most comfortable to do this mediation? Would the library be a good location? Or if it were two individuals that live in a housing complex, maybe there's a community room and the mediation could happen there. So we do come to them, which is another good feature.
And as I mentioned, since we're here in Fall River, I know that our own Fall River Government Center has been very responsive to the federal legislators. I think both Congressman Kennedy and Congressman Keating have regular office hours at the Fall River Government Center. I'm not sure about Senator Warren and Senator Markey. I think that they too have on occasion had hours offered. So I think it's something worth exploring. I know that there was an Attorney General's office in Fall River at one time. I knew the woman who coordinated that office, and for one reason or another, the office doesn't exist any longer in Fall River, so that is an inconvenience. But the fact that you folks are available and so close, and you're willing to come on site to neutral ground, if you will, a library or a housing authority property, there's certainly plenty of those available. Well, in our last 5 minutes, I'd like us maybe to explore some of the other things that I hear, at least, the Attorney General involved in, and whether or not these are things that your office is involved with as well. As there's been an awful lot of focus on mortgage issues and housing issues, particularly relating to banks and people being underwater with their mortgages, and sometimes banks not being as cooperative as they can be. Is that something that your office involves itself with, or is that another component of the Attorney General's office that deals with issues relating to mortgages and foreclosures?
Actually, the Attorney General's office has launched an initiative called HomeCore, And I would say maybe 2-3 years ago, we would get a lot of complaints against mortgage lenders or companies that would promise people that they would help them refinance mortgages and would take the money and basically run. There were a lot of scams going on maybe 2-3 years ago. Since the Attorney General's office has launched the Home Core Initiative, and this is an initiative that was actually came out of the settlement that the AG's office was able to get against 5 of the major lenders who are involved in the foreclosure crisis. They're actually taking the lead in handling mortgage cases and
So that
complaints.
wouldn't fall under your purview?
No, we would actually refer those cases to Boston because the Home Core program has actually 3 different components. They can help people with emergency financing. They can help people refinance their loans. They have they actually have processes in place to help people that are in danger of losing their homes or who have already lost their homes, but under extreme circumstances where they might be eligible for some kind of return on funds that they've lost. So we, if we get complaints like that, we are referring them directly to the Attorney General's office for cases like that.
Have people come to your office with mortgage issues?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So you've had to do some referrals out
Yeah.
in order to address those kinds of things. Well, we're down to our last couple of minutes, and what I'd like you to do, and I'm feeling a little coughing, I think both of us are sharing that we might be under the weather a little bit, so hopefully we'll get through the last couple of minutes without any problems. But if you could just summarize what each of your offices does, how they differ, and how people can contact you both via email and telephone. And in fact, this camera here is particularly for the both of you, so if you want to speak directly to our viewers, you can go directly to them through that camera.
All right. I'm with the Local Consumer Program, which is a program for consumers who wish to file a complaint against a for-profit business somewhere here in the South Coast area. And we are available for informal mediations, and we can be contacted at 508-979-1693 or consumer@newbedford-ma.gov.
And I am with the Face-to-Face Mediation Program, and you may be watching today and say, why should an individual try mediation? Well, you should try mediation because it works. And it's a wonderful offering. Magic happens, Steve, when individuals come together and talk. And it's something that we don't do enough within our society today. You know, young people handle dispute through violence, and we are doing presentations with youth serving agencies so that young people can learn positive way to handle disputes and conflicts. So mediation does work, and if you are an individual watching today and you're thinking, I would like to try mediation, call us at 508-979-1464, and if we can't help you, we will refer you to an agency that will be able to help you with whatever your conflict is.
Well, thank you, Marcy and Molly, and we thank you, our viewers. This is Inside Fall River, and we look forward to you joining us again as we progress.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.